Hello, my scrappy friends. It is Jess here from the Scrappy Sisters, and thank you for joining me for a Kitaholic Kits design team layout. Now, I do need to say that this original idea I found on a beautiful blog called The Greetery by a lovely lady called Betsy. So this first initial part of the video is very much inspired by a tutorial that she created, and then it kind of melded and molded into my own creations. But I so loved that she was able to inspire me to get started, so I wanted to share that with you there. So I started off by using my circle dies on just normal paper. Crazy idea. I should have used that beautiful Vicky Bouton paper that Steph included in his kit a couple of months back, but I forgot about it. So this is just normal paper, so it doesn't, it's not quite as lovely to work with as watercolor papers, but it definitely still worked. So you can see I cut just a teeny little strip, and I was now just figuring out with my fingers where I wanted to cut this off. It's going to be my little bowl or my little pot for my succulents. So I am rounding off the bottom strip, just rounding off those 8 edges to be kind of the base part, and I'm going to glue that along the bottom. I decided it needs to be a little bit higher, and so cut just a teeny smidge off the bottom of that circle as well. Then I am popping on my largest little succulent cluster that I have already watercolored. If you are a Kitaholic Kit subscriber, there is an exclusive video showing you how I watercolored these and what process I did and how I did that. Otherwise, you're just going to have to use your imagination and imagine that these succulents were originally white. They're from a company called Little Birdie. They were included in our kit this month, and I went ahead and watercolored those. I then also die cut these little shapes. I have no idea what their actual intention is for. They're from a lawn fawn die set that's like a whole scenery. I don't know. It's not supposed to be a string of pearls, but I thought they looked like a string of pearls, so I cut those just to add a little bit of interest and a bit more onto my succulent pot there. I then backed the whole thing in a piece of white card, but decided I didn't like the white section showing where there was no succulent, so I cut that little triangle off, and now I'm creating the slider card part of it. So the actual card that I'm going to write on and stamp on is just a really thin, almost note card size piece. This is quite a small card. It is definitely not 4x6 size. It is just a little teeny little thing. It's probably more like a slightly bigger than a note card, but it's definitely small. I was going to write look who's 40, but I'm just going to go with happy birthday on the front. I'm going to try and keep the front fairly plain and simple, because when you have it like sort of standing up on the display, you will be able to see all the writing and everything that's on the front. I couldn't comfortably fit the 40 without it getting too covered by the succulents, and I thought that would look messy on the front side, so I've included that on the back. I then pulled out a beautiful little green from the Distress Oxides that just kind of tied in with the colours I used in the succulents. So when the slider card is in, all you'll see is the happy birthday and the little spots of green. And on the back, I've just got the sentiment and the look who's 40. And I'm going to do my writing down the very bottom of the card. Now, to make the slider pocket, I just put a little bit of glue on either side, just a teeny bit on the left and right hand side of the circle, and a teeny bit along the very bottom to stop it from falling out the base. I don't want you to be able to see the handwriting when the slider is inside the little pocket, the succulent pocket, so I have made sure I wrote underneath where it would go. Just sliding that in, and discovered it just a teeny smidge too big, so I just cut off a little bit, and then that slides in beautifully, and it was ready to give. I don't actually have any close-up photographs of that because I literally ran out the door to my sister's, because it's for Katie, and gave her the card. So spoiler alert, Katie had her birthday. And that's how old she is. So now I've decided to make a few others. I wasn't super thrilled with the size of that card. I could have backed that slider card onto something else and made it more card size. I could have put it onto a card base like I'm making here. There are so many other options that I could have done. I was in a real hurry when I made that particular one. I was half an hour late for our birthday, so it just stayed the way it was. And that was the one that was very much inspired by the Greetery blog. This one, I've taken that original idea and I've just rolled with it to be more like how I would like a card to be. So I still kept that same little bowl. It's just actually the top half of the last circle I didn't throw in the trash. And I cut some more little greenery in 2 different colors because I liked that with the string of pearls, and I thought that really tied in with the other colors I used in the succulents, and I piled all those on. I did look through all of my cards to see if I had anything else that I could use, but I really don't. I'm not a card maker. I don't have a huge amount of stamps. I do have other sentiments like thinking of you and things like that, but I know that I personally don't give those cards all that often, so I decided to stick with the birthday theme and just put a look who's turning along the top, but I will leave that blank until I know who I'm giving it to and I can fill in a number there. So that was one card. I do have close-ups of those, so don't stress that you couldn't see it all that much. This one's just going to be a little teeny note card that is more of a thinking of you one. I feel like for me that's a more appropriate size for just a little like, hey, how are you going? I'm thinking of you. Hope you're well concept. I toyed around with the idea of matting it onto some form of paper, but in the end I decided I liked the leftover pink fresh. I liked the spots. I did also use this sparkly washi that came in the kit as well. It was super cute, and I deliberately overhung the pot of succulents because I thought that looked cute. Steph also gave us this stamp in a kit, but it was quite a while ago. But I decided to go with the Just For You sentiment. I was playing around with the idea of putting it sideways, but in the end, I just did one word at a time and popped it going up alongside the pot. You can also use a post-it note to cover up sections of the stamp that you don't want inked, just to make sure you don't have any unhappy accidents. Now, because it's the first time I used this stamp, I wasn't really happy with the stamp itself, like it didn't ink quite properly, so I'm just going over it with my marker. Doesn't look perfect, but it's okay. I then decided to test this one out on some scrap paper. I did 6 little stamping practices, not because I can't stamp well, but I was trying to get the coverage to be better, and it didn't make any difference. So I just stamped it anyway and then went ahead and went over it with my marker again because I just wasn't happy with like the quality of the stamp, like how well it looked when I was looking at my card. And then that one is done, just a super little simple one. And then I go back to making one more big card or full-size card, 4x6 card. Again, using some scrap of the pink fresh, just because why not? It's around, I've got it. It's a nice thick base. I just thought I'd have a play with that. And I layer up again these extra bits and bobs that I have laying around. This paper is also from a Kitaholic Kits, but from a really, really, really long time ago. And it's an original Kaiser craft paper, I think. But I'm talking 3 years ago or something, maybe even longer. It's an old one. So I layered all that up, and then I layered up a little bit of this pink fresh as well. It does still have the advertising or the packaging. I did cover most of that with some washi tape. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit that you can see. So it was going to stop me from using it, but I decided you can hardly see it and I'm not going to worry about it. For the pot this time, I still cut my full circle out of this fun sort of, it's almost rose gold on the front colouring, but decided with the sparkle going down the side, it was a little bit much, so I flipped it over and it's just a plain brown on the back, but this is a nice thick foam, and I just thought that was a really cute extra thing or special thing to add to the front of the card and just give a little bit of interest. So I'm just going to join that little bottom bit, which again is the base, and I cut a little smidge off the bottom. Kind of looks like a soup bowl or something here, but I am using it as my succulent bowl. Then I had this one from the packet that has almost like a flag or a bunting or an announcement place on it. And I didn't really like the way I'd watercolored it. I had a little bit of bleed through with the watercoloring, so I decided to cut off the little announcement-y type bit, like the flag banner bit, the banner you would call it. And I am cutting up the little sections of the succulent plant, and I'm using that around the pot and using the last two little succulents, I was going to call them florals, but they're not flowers, in the pot as well. And then I still have a whole bunch of the little string of pearls that I'm using that I had cut from a die cut, and I'm just layering all those in. I actually want more of those, but because I can only cut one at a time and they're super tiny, I'm being super lazy and I'm just using whatever I have left and then leaving it be. Again, I'm going to roll with this being a birthday card because I know I've already looked through all of my stamps and I don't really have anything else I want to use. So the front is going to stay blank until I know who I'm giving the card to, and I'm just going to put the little sentiment inside, and I've used this same one each time. So there are my 3 cards. I know there was a 4th one, but as I mentioned, I gave that straight away to my sister. I hope you have enjoyed this process, and I'm very happy sharing with you a card layout today. Stay tuned for a normal 12 by 12 layout coming up next week. Bye everyone.